This episode is supported by Stamps.com, where you can buy and print official U.S. postage, any letter, any package, using your own computer and printer. For a 4-week trial and a special $110 bonus offer, go to Stamps.com, click on the mic, and enter the promo code HERD. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy joining me as always on a Monday, 1 hour from now, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. Plenty of both in 1 hour from now. We're absolutely packed. You're finally healthy. Rough last week. Slept all weekend. Good to have you back.
Good to be back, Colin. I slept for 3.5 straight days.
And she's back and ready to go. And we're ready to go on a Monday morning. Folks, last night, NBC, you were watching the Super Bowl. Those are the two best teams. Dallas-Pittsburgh was an adorable pillow fight. You score, you score, you score, you score, you score, you score. Those were the two best teams. I'll take Belichick, Pete Carroll. You have Jason Garrett. I'm taking Russell Wilson, Tom Brady. You can have Dak Prescott. That was a Super Bowl. You go look at the box score this morning. First downs, virtually identical. Total yards, virtually identical. Yards per play, virtually identical. Penalties, virtually identical. Time of possession, virtually identical. 2 A coaches, 2 A quarterbacks. You know, it's funny, too, because Bill Belichick looks like coaches have always looked. Kind of grumpy, terse with the media. Pete Carroll doesn't. Pete Carroll's chewing gum going 100 miles an hour. He looks like a grad assistant with gray hair on the sidelines. He's like a college coach. He's pumping fist. And Russell Wilson, similarly, doesn't look like anybody that's ever played the game. I mean, the only reason Johnny Manziel gets drafted is Russell Wilson. Nobody was going to draft a 5'11", 207-pound guy who ad-libbed out of plays, Johnny Manziel, until you saw Russell Wilson, and everybody went, oh, he'll be just like Russell Wilson, except he's not as smart, he's not as willful, he's not as driven, he's not as efficient, he's not as coachable. This is what is remarkable about Seattle. And I'll be honest with you. If I'm New England this morning, I'm playing them again. At least when New England plays again, I'll make the argument for New England. Losing at home is not a bad thing because these two teams have a strong likelihood of playing again. And I can, for 2 weeks, if I'm Bill Belichick, say, couldn't beat them at home. You're going to have to play your best game. Seattle's going to go into that game thinking, we beat them in Foxborough. Advantage psychologically New England when they play, in all likelihood, on a neutral field. I know it's only Thanksgiving, but you're watching that game last night, and you're seeing what I'm seeing. You're seeing 2A coaches, 2A quarterbacks, real defenses, unbelievable psychological warfare on that game. I mean, all sorts of chess matches going on. Pittsburgh and Dallas is a pillow fight. I mean, that's you score, I score, you score, I score, you score, I score. I can't keep a lead. No, I can't keep a lead. Those are good teams, too. Those last night, those are the best teams in the league. Here's what's remarkable about Pete Carroll has created. And we talked about this last week. When you're a really, really, really good business, it doesn't matter where Starbucks is. Airport, your local neighborhood, Beijing, Boise, Birmingham. Doesn't matter. It's the same coffee and the same vibe. Starbucks travels well. Good brands travel well. I got news for you. Seattle home, Seattle away, I can't tell the difference. When this team was younger, when the Seahawks were younger 3 years ago, they were better at home than away. But as they have aged as a brand, as they have aged as a team, Seattle home and away, getting the same team. I'm getting the same team. Russell Wilson home and away, getting the same guy. Pete Carroll home and away, Seattle defense home and away, I'm getting the same coffee. That is a quality brand. And what Seattle has done under Pete Carroll is remarkable. Do you realize Seattle is the only NFL team? They're the only NFL team since 2012. 4-year sample now. That's a big sample. 4 years. They're the only NFL team with no losses over 10 points. That's unbelievable. I don't know what I get Pittsburgh week to week. Steelers half to half, I don't know what the heck I'm getting. New York Giants, quarter to quarter, I don't know what I'm getting. Philadelphia Eagles, Atlanta Falcons, even the good teams in this league, Minnesota, Green Bay, I don't know what I get half to half. Packers are always a better first half than a second half team. Seattle hasn't lost a game by 10 or more, or over 10 points in 4 years. And they only have 2 losses over 8. It's incredible. They're a little smaller and a little faster, and they hit a little harder. And I don't think I've ever appreciated Pete Carroll. I mean, I always knew he was a good coach because I have all my friends in football, and I ask them, they're like, he's quirky, but he's a good coach. I think Pete's a great coach. The fact that Seattle goes on the road after an emotional game on Monday Night Football, short week, they've been on the field, their defense, in the last month more than any other defense, and you got that performance? That is incredible. What other team could go into New England, short week, exhausted physically, and get that emotional peak? Cowboys aren't doing that. Steelers aren't doing that. They don't have the maturity. They just don't. Those were the 2 best teams in the NFL last night. Now, at the end of the game, and again, to me, it was a chess match. If they'd have played in Seattle, it would have been the same thing. At the end of the game, there's the play to Gronkowski. I had no problem with the call whatsoever. What did I say last week on Monday Night Football? I came on 1 week ago, and I said, I think Seattle is the hardest team in the league to officiate because Seattle is so aggressive. They play a psychological game with the officials that over the course of 3.5 hours, and I compared them to the Utah Jazz with Stockton Malone, Coach Jerry Sloan, they were so pushy, shovey, grabby, so physical that over the course of 3.5 hours, officials begin, because they don't want to decide every play. They don't want to blow the whistle for 3.5 hours. Officials start letting more and more and more and more go. If that play is the first play of the game, an officiating crew calls a flag. But instead, here's the final play of the game. I have no problem with the call. And Seattle's aggressiveness for 3.5 hours is why this wasn't called.
Gronk goes to the far side. He's got Chancellor on him. Brady. He's going to throw the ball up for Gronkowski, who pushes off, and it's incomplete in the end zone. He pushed off, and the ball sails over his head in the end zone. With 11 seconds left on 4th down, the Seahawks are going to take over on the 1-yard line.
Don't have a problem with it. That's a football play right there. That is a football play right there. And when you watch that game for 3.5 hours, that play was a football play. It was not interference. All right, let me shift gears now. In every Monday, I do something where Colin is right or Colin was wrong. It's on Monday, and we do it for about 5 minutes. I make all sorts of mistakes, and then there are some times I'm pretty good. So I'm going to do just one today, an hour early. I will not include this in an hour, but I'm going to do just one before I get to the Steelers Cowboys, because I'm going to get to that. But I'm going to do just one a little early. So go ahead, John.
Where Colin was right?
For the last 8 weeks, the American sports media, I mean everybody except moi, has said once the Hillary-Trump campaign ends, the ratings will bounce back. It's not about Kaepernick. The ratings have been down. It's not about the penalties. It's not about this blah, 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 blah. Take the emotion out of it. Trump and Hillary figure out who's president, give it a couple of weeks, and the ratings will come back. America didn't suddenly start disliking football. The consumption's been better than ever. People are just not watching as long, and ratings come from 2 things, total audience and time spent viewing. The ratings are in from last night. Through the roof. You know what else is in this morning? Ratings from the Sunday political shows. Down, down, down. You can listen to other shows, certainly, but if you want the straight skinny, without emotion, the truth, and you'll hate me most of the time for it, this is the show. People didn't suddenly hate the league because of Colin Kaepernick. That's what they talk about after a few Heinekens at the local bar. This was about the most polarizing election of our lives. It's now over. Political shows down. often 30% this past 4 or 5 days. NFL ratings yesterday, up, 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 up. Hi, it's the Herd. Getting your mailing and shipping done seems like a no-win situation. Going to the post office takes up valuable time, leasing a postage meter expensive, and with multi-year commitments and hidden fees. Luckily, we know a better way. All of us do here. Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, it's simple. You buy and print official U.S. postage, the real stuff, for any letter or package, right from your own desk. That easy. You use your own computer and your own printer. You even get special postage discounts you will not find at the post office. Plus, Stamps.com is more powerful than a postage meter. At just a fraction of the cost, you can save at least 50% compared to a postage meter. Why wouldn't you use Stamps.com? And you'll never go to the post office again. Right now, sign up. Stamps.com. Use my promo code HERD for a 4-week trial plus a $110 bonus offer, including postage and a digital scale. It's amazing how good this offer is. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click on the mic, top of the home page, and type in HERD. That's Stamps.com, enter HERD. Going to the post office? Never again. Pittsburgh and Dallas was wildly fun. Best pillow fight I've ever seen. Wildly entertaining. I love, even my wife, it like came in just like, can I just sit here? And I'm like, let me ponder that. Are you allowed in my man room to watch with me? Okay, come on in.
Do you say she can't ask any questions if she sits there?
No, she starts talking about what's in Nickelback, and then I'm like, okay, out.
That's sweet.
No, I'm not into sweet. There's the exit. Let's talk football. So she came in last night, and I said, no questions. Just watch the game. No questions.
You tell her Nickelback is a band.
That's exactly right. She asked a bunch of questions, and I don't have patience for it, and I can't hear Joe Buck talking and Troy Aikman talking. I'm like, stop talking. Just come in and watch the football game. So we had ground rules. She came into the room, and I said, ground rules, no talking. Devices down, watch the game, and love me. So she agreed to those.
And love you. That's not fair.
So she agreed to those terms. So I'm watching the game. It was just fantastic. But here we go again. Uncle Colin is ahead of the curve on this. Big Ben Roethlisberger goes 37 of 46, 408 yards at home, and you lose. Mike Tomlin, once again, this team is all over the map and not buttoned up. Face mask penalties, a hit out of bounds on one of the next to last drives for Dallas. Listen, the 4 best teams in this league, most talented, look like, in no order, Dallas, New England, Seattle. I'd throw Pittsburgh up there. Which one don't you trust in a big spot? And last night, after this game, there was a real moment here. You don't believe me. Ben Roethlisberger, for the second time in a month, came out and criticized the coaching staff. Listen to this.
They're a great football team. Like I said, we undisciplined and not accountable. That's why they're one of the best in the business, and we're not right now.
Whoa. Now, folks, there is a big difference, a monumental difference between voting for a candidate and putting his or her sign in your yard. Okay, you put a sign in your yard for whoever you're going to vote for. That's more than a vote. You're a messenger. You'll go to a cocktail party and talk about it. You put a bumper sticker on your truck for a candidate or a sign in your yard. That's not just voting. You're now an ambassador. You are proud of it. You will fight for it. You will argue. You will call radio shows. That's why those signs are significant. The media never spotted it, but there were all sorts of red signs all over America. Media didn't want to pay attention to. There is similarly a huge difference between being unhappy as a star quarterback and calling out your coach. Okay, you do understand. A lot of quarterbacks are unhappy. Big Ben has called out his head coach 2 times publicly in the last month. That is putting a sign in your yard and a bumper sticker on your truck. That is not just voting. That is promoting. That is not just criticism of Mike Tomlin. That is telling everybody in football, your owner, your general manager, people that have power, I'm not happy with who is coaching us. That is one of the big moments of the year. Been on this for a couple of months. Good businesses are consistent businesses. The Steelers are talented. You do not know what you get series to series, game to game, half to half, play to play. You don't know what you get. You know what you get with Seattle, effort. You know what you get with New England. You know what you get with Kansas City and Andy Reid. Same low-scoring, tough, physical football team. No mistakes. They take it. They don't giveth every week. You know what you get with the Steelers. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Big Ben, all sorts of players. All sorts of players. And here's the truth is, once you're successful, there's a force field. He won a Super Bowl. It's like Judd Apatow. Judd Apatow made 40-Year-Old Virgin, one of my favorite movies of all time. I think my favorite comedy of all time, after Miss Doubtfire, which is like the best movie ever.
What?
Yeah, that's not even a comedy. That's just great cinema. But I'm telling you, 40-Year-Old Virgin's great. Since then, Judd Apatow, a lot of swing and misses. But he was successful. Same with Johnny Depp. When he's not playing a pirate or a person with scissors for fingers, he stinks. But once you had a big one, once you get the Super Bowl, once you do Edward Scissorhands, once you do 40-Year-Old Virgin, force field. And all the arrows just hit the force field and drop off. Like Mike Tomlin right now, that team, you don't know what you're getting. They gave that game away. They gave that game, and that's nothing on Dallas. Dallas went on the road. I mean, Dallas is what Dallas is. Great offensive line, good running game, fun to watch, a lot of points. I mean, that's like 35, 35, 34, 29. You get all sorts of points with the Cowboys every week. I don't love their defense, and I think their pass defense is really, really marginal at best. But this is not me clobbering Dallas. Dallas is one of the better teams in the league. Pittsburgh, though, wow. Wow. Big Ben came out and clobbered him. That is a bumper sticker on a truck. That's not just voting, that's promoting. That's for the owner to hear. That is for the owner to hear.
Hey, sports fans, football season is here, and it's time to get in on the action. MyBookie.lv, an industry-leading website, is offering a 50% bonus when you join and deposit today. Are you sick and tired of getting the runaround when you ask for a payout? Come join MyBookie.lv. With decades of expertise, no hassle payouts, and no fine print, you'll experience the greatest customer service in the business, guaranteed. Did the game already start? Don't sweat it. MyBookie offers in-game live action on all your favorite sporting events. Call 844-900-2387 or visit us online at mybookie.lv to open an account and claim your 50% bonus. Pull out your smartphone to sign up with our user-friendly mobile site for Adrenaline on demand. What are you waiting for? Get in the game. Call now to claim your 50% bonus before it's gone. That's 844-900-2387 or go online to mybookie.lv to open an account and start winning today. Only the biggest, only the best, only at mybookie.lv. Sign up today.
He's one of the greatest players in league history, not just one of the greatest running backs. He's one of the greatest players in the history of the league. A multi-time Pro Bowler, a Hall of Famer, the single-season rushing record, 2,100 yards and change, NFL rookie season rushing record, which could be broken by Ezekiel Elliott. Let's bring on Eric Dickerson to our show. And, the only one running back has ever run like you in the history of the league, and he is not you. Rashaan Salaam had that upright stance, but the great ones often play different. Nobody looked like Steve Young till Steve Dunk. Nobody looked like you as a runner until you. Okay, so you watch Ezekiel Elliott, and these Cowboy fans, they pelt me with hate mail because I keep saying, can we give the offensive line
a little love?
I mean, what if Ezekiel had the Rams O-line?
Oh, it would be a whole different animal. I just said that. I said that yesterday. I said if Zeke had the offensive line at the Rams, he had the Rams behind that offensive line, it would be way different. And that's not taking anything away from him. Just understand, offensive linemen are so important. They're the bread and butter of your football team, especially this Cowboys football team. When you look at that last run he had, it was like, man, I really believe I could have ran through that hole and made it to the end zone.
And how old are you right now?
56, and I think I might have dove in for the touchdown, but I might not have been any good for the next month. But I think I could have got there.
So, what do you make of Dak? Who do you compare him to?
Well, Colin, I saw Dak play in the preseason when he played the Rams, the first game of the season. And I'm like, man, who is this kid? And for me, accuracy is everything. And I'm not a quarterback. I'm not a quarterback guru. I'm not a quarterback. But when you can put the ball where it has to be, and he did it 3 times in that football game, I'm like, wow, this kid can throw the football. And when Tony got hurt and he came in, I said that this guy is going to be a good player. And in week 2, people said, I don't know, you got to bring Tony back. Tony got to rush back. I said, I don't think so. I think this guy is a real deal. He reminds me so much of Warren Moon. His composure, the way he stands in the pocket, his accuracy, the tight spiral he throws. I mean, he could be up for MVP. I mean, you could almost have co-MVPs. Him and Ezekiel Elliott could both be co-MVPs. That's how good both of them are playing right now, to me.
It's interesting. When you played, you could draft a running back. But now the basic narrative is don't draft running backs. I would imagine you're pro running back. But
of course.
But is Ezekiel to you, now I want Hall of Fame running back on great rookie running back. What does he do that you see that maybe I don't see as a running back?
Well, one thing he does is he really watches his block. Like, I'll say this much here. In the first couple of weeks, because I talked to Zeke, I was texting him back and forth, and I told him, hey, just let it come to you. It'll happen. Just let the game come to you. It'll happen. Because
Le'Veon Bell's pretty good at that.
He's very good at that. You see, he's the same kind of runner. He kind of waits, and then hits the hole.
Right.
Zeke does the same thing. I told him, just let the game come to you, and it'll start happening. And as you watch it, that's what he's doing now. But you know what's giving him that opportunity?
What?
The offensive line is stalemating the defensive line at the line of scrimmage. If you got penetration in the backfield, the play is over. But even you can wait and wait because the offensive line is giving you time to pick and choose your holes.
You know, we were talking about offensive lines, and I have this sort of theory that you live in Los Angeles and you work. You're obviously commenting a lot on the Rams. And my takeaway on the L.A. Rams and Jared Goff is they've drafted 10 offensive linemen in 4 years. None are great. Is it possible, like with the Rams, that staff, that organization isn't good with offensive players?
Well, Jeff Fisher's a defensive guy. And if you notice, the defense is solid, very good.
Every year.
Every year they're solid. So most definitely, and you have to put something to that. But also you have to look at I call them the suits, the guys up top that are letting these things happen. Like, people say that Jared Goff, that was Fisher's guy. Me personally, I don't believe that. He's a defensive guy. I don't think Fisher would trade away his whole team, for one player. And I say that because if that's the case, the Rams are one player away. If you look at their team, what would we supposedly? We were quarterback away. We're not a quarterback away. We're receivers away. We're offensive linemen away. I mean, we don't know what Jared Goff can do because he hasn't played in the regular season. So
you think Jeff Fisher's hand, Eric, was forced a little?
I believe his hand was forced. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, when it was all said and done, when they did it, he had to say, "This is my guy." We're gonna say, "No, this is not the guy I want." Right. Of course, he had to say, "This is my guy." I mean, you have to.
Eric Dickerson, one of the all-time great NFL players, period, Hall of Famer, multiple Pro Bowlers, Offensive Player of the Year. I was talking about this with the Steelers. Like Mike Tomlin, he won a Super Bowl, got to 2, so he's not incompetent. But I find Pittsburgh to be wildly inconsistent. Not New England, not Seattle, not Kansas City. I think a good business, if you go to Starbucks, you get the same coffee, whether you're in downtown L.A. or Beijing. That's good business. When you go back to your career, did you play with locker rooms that were disciplined and undisciplined? Does it shift year to year?
Oh, most definitely. You have both. It's like, I'll say this much, with the Rams, that was a disciplined locker room because we had a lot of veteran players. We had an offensive
Slater,
Dennis Hara. I mean, we had a lot of guys, we had David Hill. We had a lot of guys that had been there for years.
Grown-ups,
grown men. I mean, my offensive line had been together 6.5 years when I got there. So we had a lot of Jack Youngblood. I mean, I was a big Jack Youngblood fan. So we had a veteran locker room. The nonsense wasn't going to happen. When I went to the Colts, we had a pretty much kind of a veteran team a little bit, but when we traded for Jeff George, we got rid of a lot of veteran players
to pay for him.
And now we got a young locker room, and it showed. It showed.
How?
One way I can say it showed. It was really disturbing to me is when we had one of those seasons we were losing, and the players say, "Man, I'm just getting my check." I'm like, have some pride. Have some pride. You just want to go out and take these butt kickings every week with no pride involved in it. And that was the frustrating thing. You didn't have anyone that would stand up and say, hey, man, this team, this is where we're going. We're not here, we're going here. I mean, it was just so frustrating. I mean, because I was a Steeler fan too. Believe it or not, I was a Steeler fan. You know why? Because they used to beat the Cowboys, so I became a Steeler fan. I look at the Steelers as a team that's always had a solid foundation.
Yes.
A real solid foundation. You knew what they were. If defense is gonna hit you in the mouth, they're gonna play tough, and they're gonna get in your face. They're gonna get in each other's face if they're not playing hard and they're not playing right. And right now, I don't think that's happening with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they've had some injuries, but it is what it is. That's football. Football is a sport that you're gonna get hit and you're gonna get hurt.
When you watched Seattle, New England last night, and I said I started my show saying I love the Steelers Cowboys. It was a great TV product. But when I was watching that game last night, the chess match between Belichick and Pete. I watched the Super Bowl and I watched that game. Very few guys can go up against Belichick and play with him. And you can sense that. You can sense half to half, possession to possession. Pete Carroll's very different. Now, Eric, in your career, I want you to go back to your coaches. Pete's chewing gum 100 miles an hour. He looks like a grad assistant. He's high-fiving his players. He doesn't really act and look like when he was at USC.
Like NFL coach.
He's 60 going on 24. When you watch Pete, what do you see? What's his magic?
It's funny you say that. I think it was a couple of weeks ago they won a game. I forgot which game it was. And Pete was they were going in at halftime, and he was hugging the players and grabbing the players. And I'm like, see, that's why they love him. He's like one of us. He's like one of the players. Even though he's the head coach, he can relate to us. Come on, guys, come on. It's halftime. We're leading. Come on. That's the kind of coach he is. And one thing about Seattle is that when I look at their football, they're a talented football team too.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a team that has a little bit of talent. So when you play a team like the New England Patriots, and if you got just as much talent, I think they have more talent.
So do I.
It's no problem. It's like, hey, we're just as talented as you, if not even more. So with having a coach that can relate to his players, the players love, they're going to play that much harder for the coach. Because you know why? You don't want to let your coach down.
So much fun. Before we let you go, Eric Dickerson, so you played in the league for a long time, and you probably took your share of Toradol shots or whatever they call them to play. But, you were a guy, you were a workhorse. And some people have said Ezekiel Elliott, they're just running him too much. So I want you to go back to your career. Could I make the argument that they're leaning on Ezekiel Elliott? But now, Eric, the weather gets cold. It gets a little harder to wake up in the morning. You know what it's like. Could I make the argument the Cowboys are built for the regular season? They're going to wear that young kid out later.
Yes and no. I guarantee if you ask Zeke, he'd want to play every play. He wants to get the ball as much as you can. I did too. Only thing is that I can say when it got to week 11 and 12, for me, I came in at 220, 225.
That was camp weight.
That was camp weight. During the season, I stayed at that weight pretty much. When I got to week 11, because I was not used to basically a 20-game season, preseason and regular season, I dropped my weight to 212. I was tired. I'm like, I am so beat up. I couldn't wait for the season to end so I could kind of get recharged. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to him because they seem to do a good job of rotating him out.
Okay.
But
it is different, though.
It is different. It is different playing the 12-game season, a 13-game season in college opposed to really a 16-game regular season. Then you got, possibly 3 to 4 games in the playoffs. It's way different. I feel like they're doing a good job with him. I mean, the thing is because he doesn't take the big shots, those big shots. They have a great offensive line.
Yeah, but you didn't take a ton, did you?
Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we ran the ball 30, 35 times a game.
God.
With 21 times, that's good. 30, 35 times a game.
So by week 11, 12, you were a different back.
I was a different back. I was beat up. But the second year, the year I ran for 2,000 yards, I said, I'm going to be more prepared. I'm going to get my body in better shape. And I was ready for that 16-game season. There was no problem. So it just depends on the player, and it depends on the injuries you have. If you have a shoulder injury, rib injury, it's hard to run, with that authority that you want to run with. If you have a knee injury, for sure you can't cut. So you try to stay away from the little nagging injuries.
Great seeing you, man.
Hey, good seeing you, man. Great show, too.
Hi, it's The Herd. Listen, I've always known that Perky Jerky makes the best tasting jerky on earth. That's why I invested in the company. But don't take my word for it. Now the folks at Perky Jerky have proof. In a blind taste test of the top 4 selling beef jerky brands, People prefer the taste of Perky Jerky. And not just prefer the taste, by a 2-to-1 margin over other jerky brands. But you already knew that. In fact, Perky Jerky is so confident that you'll love it, they have a money-back guarantee. If you don't think it's the best jerky you've had, get your money back. So what do you have to lose? Pick up Perky Jerky at Walmart, Kroger, Costco, or Whole Foods. I saw the polls today in college football. They're just ridiculous. They got USC like 15th. Really? Think there's 14 teams in America that can beat USC? All these pollsters have no courage. They get paralyzed by win-loss records. It just cracks me up. So the AP top 15 through week 11, and here's where they have it right now. They've got USC at 15. They just manhandled Washington, who's at 7. But this is why I just can't pay too much attention to the polls. They came in with a new staff. They got off to a 1-3 start, and people buried them. But I'll tell you what, outside of Alabama, and I don't think anybody can play with Alabama. Ohio State's probably the closest, but nobody's beaten Alabama. I'd put USC up against anybody. They have physically pushed Colorado and Washington in the Pac-12 all over the field. If it wasn't for one of their corners slipping, I don't think Washington would have scored a touchdown. They just were bigger, faster, stronger, but they're going to be 15th. I've said this, that game was not about Washington. The press thought it was about Washington, but the traditional power that gets 5-star recruits is USC. That game was about USC. That was about USC. USC fans, since Pete Carroll left, have been living in a chaos tunnel. Now it ends. Now they know this coaching staff can win big games, not only against good teams, but on the road and against really, really good coaches. Because when you watch that game, it's the first game in 3 or 4 years where you felt the Trojans were absolutely all buttoned up. Special teams, defense. I don't love their offensive coaching right now. I think Sam Darnold's spectacular at quarterback. For the record, all of this has changed since they put him in at quarterback. The coaches haven't changed. They put one quarterback in. What do you know? Remember when Alabama played USC? The first quarterback they started with couldn't move the ball. The second guy who's been starting since, they blew USC out. In college football, one quarterback can change everything. As good as Cam is, and he won a national title at Auburn, Cam's not winning big time in the NFL. He had a huge winning streak last year. You take that away, he's sub 500. In college, if you have a great quarterback, he can be a game changer. Sam Darnold is fantastic. He makes everybody at USC look better. That said, though, they looked like the game plan, be physical. They showed poise, real defense and special teams. There you go, USC. You got your guy. Still don't love their offensive coordination during a game. I don't think they're overly layered or clever, but that game was a referendum on this staff now capable of beating good teams, well-coached teams in their conference, even on the road. That's a good feeling, and you haven't had that in a long time at USC.
This is the Herd Podcast.
Every Monday at this time, I look over my predictions from the last week, my bold statements, and I make mistakes, and we need to address them. And so let's not waste any time, John Goulet. Roll the tape.
Where Colin was right.
Blazing 5. We're having a really good year. A really, really good year. Blazing 5, another winning record. We called Tennessee over Green Bay. We called Miami over San Diego. We called Denver over New Orleans. And Dallas, Pittsburgh, I mean, depending on the minute you watched, we had it, we lost it, we had it, we lost it. Blazing 5, 3-2, about a 60% clip this year. It's been really, really strong, and we really have only been on the wrong side of about 4 or 5 games the entire season. I mean, really on the wrong side.
Where Colin was wrong.
A couple of weeks ago, I said, I'm taking Carolina as my bounce-back team for the second half of the season. Listen, can we stop making excuses for Cam Newton? They've got plenty of talent. Greg Olson's a great tight end. Kelvin Benjamin's a great player at wide receiver. Funchess can play. Jonathan Stewart, their O-line's fine. He is so inconsistent. 23 of 38. Be more accurate. I'm telling you, I watch these young quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Marcus Mariota, and Derek Carr. I don't get the moodiness of Cam and the inconsistency of Cam. once again, I sometimes fall in love with the optics. Big, strong Cam. I love their front seven defensively, but they're just too inconsistent. And Cam, sorry, they're just young quarterbacks I like more now.
Where Colin was right.
This is the last time I'll go to this one, but I'm going to say it one more time. Ezekiel Elliott, I was strongly, when everybody else said it was nuts, I said draft a running back. My belief, my methodology in the draft is just draft productive players. Draft a kicker if you think he's going to be with you for 14 years. Draft a running back. Draft a quarterback. Just draft productive players. Coaches don't get fired when they've got a roster full of productive players. They get fired all the time when they have a roster of value. You know who you shouldn't draft? Punters. They're not productive. Don't draft in most cases. Cowboys an exception. Don't draft a guard, the most unathletic offensive line position. But if a guy's productive and you can pencil him into your lineup and you see him as a 1,000-yard performer, then that's a first-round player to me.
Where Colin was wrong.
Before the season started, Alabama didn't have a quarterback. And had key losses. And I said, I think they're going to be fifth. I think they're going to get knocked out of the Final Four in college football. They're so much better than everybody else, it's not even close. They've won 22 of 23. That's in the SEC. And in most instances, like this weekend against Mississippi State, the game's over 5 minutes in. I mean, it's over 5 minutes in. They are well coached. They're smart. They're physical. And I'll say this with Lane Kiffin. They're creative offensively. They give you a ton of different looks. They're number one by a long shot.
Where Colin was right.
Brock Osweiler of the Houston Texans is as cruddy as I predicted. He's tall, he's jittery, he's unathletic, and the 2 or 3 times I've seen him interviewed, I don't love his personality. He gets defensive. This guy's got the third worst completion percentage in the NFL, the second worst passer rating, second worst passing yards per game, and the worst yard per attempt. And he's got like guys that can get down the field. It's not like they don't have any weapons. He's got a couple of guys on the perimeter that can really play. He is not a franchise quarterback.
Where Colin was wrong.
Boy, did I whiff on the top of the NFC. I went back and looked at my predictions this morning for the top of the NFC. I had Packers 1, Panthers 2, and Cardinals 3. I even butchered the bottom of the conference where I thought the Lions and the Eagles would be the pits, and they're both really compelling and really interesting and have a shot at the playoff. I was pretty good in the AFC. But you know what? Maybe next year I'll just pick the AFC. I won't even pick the NFC because I whiffed, especially at the top and bottom.
Where Colin was right.
Now, this is a two-parter. I said USC should have hired Clay Helton. I said he's stable. He's a grown-up. There's too much chaos. His dad was an NFL coach, respected. Clay Helton knows the program. He knows personnel. He knows Southern California. And it does look like now they've got it together.
Where Colin was wrong.
But after 3 weeks, I said fire him. I said they're humiliating themselves. At one time, they had 8 men on the field. Their special teams were a disaster. They were wasting their timeouts in the first quarter. They had blowout losses. Clay Helton didn't even know exactly where to stand on the sidelines. So that's kind of a little both there.
Where Colin was right.
This is my favorite. I did my homework on this one. Remember I said about 6 months ago? I said Lorenzo Romar at Washington is the worst game coach in college basketball and maybe the best recruiter not named John Calipari. So they have, once again, the presumptive number one pick in the NBA draft is a kid named, is it Markelle Fultz? So he had Markelle Fultz. He's going to be the number one pick. He had 30 points yesterday. Man, Lorenzo can recruit. And they lost to Yale. He can't coach. And Yale was missing their best player. He probably had like a midterm or something. The guy, honestly, he's Calipari. But X's and O's, nobody gets less out of NBA players than Washington. And it's not like their NBA players kind of drift and sit on the bench. They put guys in the NBA like Terrence Jones, Isaiah Thomas. You're like, oh, that guy can play. Brandon Roy, that guy can play. That guy's like an all-star.
Catch the Herd from noon to 3 Eastern on iHeartRadio and FS1.
Not that it was an epiphany, but I'm watching yesterday, and I'm watching Dak Prescott. And, we also saw Jimmy Garoppolo. We've been worried in the NFL because it happened in the late 90s where Troy Aikman left and Steve Young left. And, a lot of the great quarterbacks almost simultaneously in a 2 and 3 year window left. And we've been saying is who's going to replace these guys? I got to tell you something. Dak Prescott, Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, we're fine. Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, we're fine. The ratings right back up yesterday. Now, these games obviously were fantastic. Next weekend's ratings are not going to equal this weekend's because you had tremendous games. But I think we've got the young quarterbacks. And I was sitting there, and not that and we also have the Matt Ryans and the Aaron Rodgers, and, but I'm watching Cam Newton yesterday. Cam Newton, stop with the belly aching. You've got real receivers. They have 3 legitimate receivers, an elite tight end, and a very good running back. Cam Newton, I'm over it. And if there are 4 things that I am looking for my quarterback, accuracy. Dak Prescott's accurate. Derek Carr's accurate. Marcus Mariota's accurate. My number 1 thing, can you throw the ball down the field accurately? Okay, that's the number 1 thing. Number 2 is, are you a grown-up? Maturity. Accuracy, maturity. You can't be a goofball. Jamarcus Russell had talent, goofball. Ryan Leaf had talent, goofball. Johnny Manziel had talent, goofball. You got to be accurate, and you got to be a grown-up. Now, you also... Are you coachable? That kind of goes into the grown-up slot. And then, do you give me a little mobility? I don't want you. You don't have to be Russell Wilson, but do you give me a little mobility? Do you give me some feet you can move? You can at least slide in the pocket. And I was sitting there thinking this morning, if you told me today, all things in, I could start my franchise with quarterbacks, I don't even know where I'd put Cam. I don't care that he's the reigning MVP. The whining, the coachability, the inconsistency, the marginal accuracy. Been in this league 6 years. He's got 1 great winning streak. And that winning streak, you do realize, was tied with the Jets for the easiest schedule in the league during that winning streak. It was a lot of Houston Texans. It was a lot of junk teams. Jags, Texans, in his own division, which Jameis Winston was a rookie quarterback. So play the music, John Goulet. You give me a quarterback in this league, and I'll tell you, if today I'm a general manager and I know everything. Cam's been in the league 6 years. You give me a quarterback, and I'll tell you, do I choose Cam or this quarterback moving forward to run my franchise?
Okay, we'll start with last night. Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson. More mature Russell Wilson. I get the same performance when he's healthy every time.
Tom Brady?
Not close, Brady.
Okay. Andrew Luck?
Andrew Luck.
How about the guy you're big on today, Marcus Mariota?
The shocker of the league. Everybody's paying attention to Dak Prescott. Marcus Mariota, have you seen his red zone numbers? He's the best player in league history. It means he's had 27 touchdowns, no picks in the red zone. And Marcus Mariota, I don't get the fashionista stuff. That's the downside, I guess.
Fashionista.
But I don't get all the cool hats. But I'll tell you what, leadership qualities, that team, you watch the Titans, you know who that team's rallying around. I don't get any goofy comments. I don't get whining. The guy's accurate. He is mobile, and he's big. Mariota's a big kid.
What about Dak?
Dak Prescott. I've told you, his maturity blows me away. Cam's more talented. Dak's more mature.
Derek Carr?
Not even close. Derek Carr.
Okay, Jameis Winston.
Cam.
Ryan Tannehill.
Cam.
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan.
Stafford. What about Jimmy Garoppolo?
Garoppolo.
Whoa. Really?
Started 2 games.
Really?
All right.
How
I got one for you. Aaron Rodgers.
What?
So where do you rank Cam?
That's my question.
15th?
That's my question. If I'm looking for accuracy, coachability, maturity, don't tell me Cam doesn't have weapons. Don't tell me that anymore. They've got very good receivers, very good back, very good tight end, average to above average offensive line. You don't know what you're getting week for week.
Carson Wentz.
Why are you looking
Now
at
you're just.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
this
Here's the real
Mario? Is this
test.
Super Mario
Floppy
Brothers?
sleeves.
Bradford? No,
Yeah.
I'd take Cam.
Okay, so you're not totally crazy.
Hey, I'm willing to trade Klay Thompson. I'm out there today.
No, that makes sense.
I'm telling
Wait,
you,
really?
I am
Was that Mario
over
Brothers?
Cam Newton. I'm over it. I know he's talented, but he's completing like 57% of his throws 6 years in. He holds the ball forever. Let it go. Now, Garoppolo, let me recant that. Rescind that. With Garoppolo, as long as I get Belichick with Garoppolo. Okay, if you give me Garoppolo with Belichick, I like what I saw there.